Some may call her a slacker due to her abandoning her job when she was needed the most. Others consider her as a being you should avoid, as the sight of them can incite death, and to a certain hermit, she can be quite the antagonist. Sorta. I will be referring to said girl as Komachi. Hello, Magi here, and welcome back to another episode of Character Profile, the series where I take an in-depth look of a character from games, print work, fan-related stuff, and anything that can be associated with Komachi will be discussed here. So without further ado, let's begin the character profile for Komachi Onozuka. Name and their meaning. As always, we'll be looking at her name first. Her full name is Komachi Onozuka. Komachi contains the characters that means small and town, an uncommonly used term that is roughly equivalent to the town beauty. Hey, maybe it's a beautiful town where Komachi's town is. If any, I don't know. Onozuka is written to contain the characters small, field, and mound. Komachi's name is extremely similar to that of Ono no Komachi, a famous Heian-era waka poet, with the main difference being that the poet's name lacked the kanji Zuka. She probably slept much less than our Komachi, but who knows? I don't know the poet. There's a famous legend regarding Ono no Komachi's grandfather, Ono no Takamura, which claimed that at night he would descend into hell via a well and aid the Yama in passing judgment. If that is the case, Takamura certainly helped out the Yama way more than Komachi. Character appearance. We're going to be focusing on Komachi's physical appearance now. In Phantasmagoria, Scarlet, and the printworks, Komachi has red eyes and short pinkish red hair with two ponytails tied by two double-haired beads. She wears a white dress underneath a blue vest and has an obi with a large coin tied in the center. She also carries a scythe with a wispy ripple at the end of its blade. Her alternative outfit in Phantasmagoria is the same as her usual outfit, except her hair beads are yellow and her vest is green. Her alternative outfit in Scarlet Weather is the same as her usual outfit, except her dress is red instead of blue and she has pink hair. Appearance in games and print work. So we're going to be reviewing all the times she has shown up. Her first appearance was in Phantasmagoria of Flower View. When the flower incident first occurred, she wasn't particularly bothered or worried about it. Instead, she simply carried on at her usual pace, occasionally even running away from work at times. This is going to be a theme throughout this video, trust me. Because of this, the huge quantity of spirits that arrive on the banks of the Sanzu River were not brought across the river to stand before the Yama. This in turn led to flowers of every season blooming as they became possessed by these unjudged souls. She is the penultimate boss for most of the story mode scenarios in the game and is an unlockable playable character. Unlike most of the playable characters scenario, however, Komachi is set up as an extra stage, where she starts with 0 extra lives and all fights are death matches. Both her and the opponents have half a health dot to start with. Very unique, I would say. She shows up in Shoot the Bullet. She appears in the final stage where Aya takes pictures of her Domaku. She's in stage 10-1, 10-3, 10-5, and 10-7. Her next game appearance is in Scarlet Weather Raspberry. Not surprising, she's out and about during her quote-unquote free time. As she thinks about the sudden changes in the weather, Yomu informs her that someone is killing ghosts in order to manipulate the temperatures. She begins her work at the bamboo forest of the lost before she goes to investigate the Hakari Shrine's condition, where Tenchi appears to keep her promise to Reimu of rebuilding the shrine. She calls out Tenchi's immortality as a sham and states that her lifespan is already over before challenging her to a battle. Although Tenchi was defeated in the battle, Komachi is unable to send her to the netherworld as she is simply a fairy Gaishinigami rather than a reaper. Let's just say the beef was real between Komachi and Tenchi during that time. She appears in Hiso Tensoku. Though she's in it, she didn't get anything special as the game's story mode was revolved around Chiruno, Mei-Ling, and Sanae. She shows up in Hopeless Masquerade in the Divine Spirit Mausoleum stage, but only as a background character. Here we see her sleeping. You do not disappoint me. She's got some good representation when it comes to print work. Her first showcase was in Perfect Memento and Strict Sense, where she had her own article written by a Q. Her next showcase was in Strange and Bright Natured Deity, where she was only a minor character. She's only in chapter 4. Next on the list will be Silent Sinner. Here she's only shown in chapter 9. Here we see her talking to Eiki. Komachi has a small appearance in Inaba of the Moon and Inaba of the Earth. She pops up in chapter 30. Her appearances is much better in Oriental Sacred Place as she shows up in 3 chapters. Hot damn. She's in chapter 6, 12, and 18. This next one is perhaps the place where she's showing off the most. In Walden Horn Hermit, she was a very important secondary character. Many times she would show up at Kaizen's place, lightly threatening her and other fun stuff. She appears in Symposium of Post-Mysticism. There's a picture drawn of Komachi diligently doing her job, and in the meanwhile, Minamitsu is also doing her job of sinking the Reaper's boat. Next would be Forbidden Squirrely. As compared to the last one, she's only a minor character. She's in Chapter 2. She shows up in Strange Creators of Outer World, Volume 3, in the profile section. Fun fact, in this print work, Zoom refers to her as a washed out of a Shinigami. That would explain a lot. She's also in Visionary Fairies and Shrine. She's in Chapter 2, 5, 6, and 10. Komachi also appears in Alternative Facts in Eastern Utopia. There's an essay written by Komachi. Now you've piqued my interest. It's related to death, so it's not surprising. Last in the list will be Lotus Eater. Here she shows up in Chapter 4 and 5. This is an ongoing print work, so this part can expand for Komachi, so we'll have to see. Personality. Let's take a look at Komachi's personality. She's known for being a slacker, the biggest trait associated with the Shinigami. She has a lazy, carefree personality and loves to talk, especially to the departed spirits she ferries across the Sanzu River. As a Shinigami, Komachi is mildly antagonistic to people who outlive the regular lifespan. Hermits and Celestials, for instance, and very antagonistic to those who destroy souls, phantoms, and other spirits. As long as you don't do those listed above, I'm sure you and Komachi can be good friends. Since Komachi is just a Shinigami ferryman, it is not in her jurisdiction to take another person's life. However, she won't hesitate to threaten them with her scythe while issuing a warning, as seen in her interactions with Tenshi and especially Kaizen during Wild. Occupation/jobs. Now Komachi's job is rowing her boat called the Titanic, mind you, across the Sanzu River. Not gonna lie, that's an awesome name. When she has to ferry a soul, those dead souls will pay a toll to Komachi. Should they have enough, Komachi will, in theory, do her job in rowing them to Higen. Higen is the other side of the Sanzu River. Once they're there, they will await judgment. Whether they'll go to the netherworld, heaven, hell, or be reincarnated. If it's hell, the soul is out of the loop of the reincarnation cycle, though it's only temporary. General information/backstory. Since Komachi doesn't have a crazy backstory like Yuko or some others I can't think of off the top of my head, let's just review her species, the Shinigami. So Shinigamis are inspired by Grim Reapers. I don't know if they carry scythes with them, but Komachi does, so I'll take that for what it's worth. Another thing is that they don't belong in Shinto or Buddhist belief, but they still pop off enough in fictions based on them. So with that mentioned, let's review them in Touhou. In the series, Shinigamis might occupy different roles, and their duties include recording lifespans of the living, acting as a guide to souls unfamiliar with hell, recording the proceedings of the Yama's court, and ferrying the souls of the deceased to the Yama so they can be judged. Due to a lie spread by the Shinigami, most people believe their lives to be over at the sight of a Shinigami, a reputation bolstered by the large scythe the Shinigami carry with them. I'm not gonna lie, I would lose my shit if I saw that in real life. The belief goes that if you are actually charged with taking the souls of the expired, and that these Shinigamis may be fought with just as any other creature, allowing stronger beings to continually prolong their lifespans. Celestials are notorious for this, disguising their victories as guaranteed immortality. In truth, normal humans would just die naturally, and only people who exceedingly extend their lives are attacked. And this isn't done by Shinigamis, but by Kishin Chiefs, a class of powerful Oni residing in hell, such as Suiki. A prime example of that was in Wild Chapter 12. The Kishin Suiki targeted Sega because the Wicked Hermit has lived for too long. Even Kaizen, a hermit, believes the Wicked Hermit has been around for too long. Komachi is currently the only Shinigami in Kitsuki that we currently know of. Like I mentioned earlier, her main job is to ferry souls to Higen by crossing the Sanzu River, a river in Japanese Buddhism analogous to the Greek river Styx. That means bringing souls to the Yama or Emma, aka Eiki. While Komachi is a ferry guide of the Sanzu, not all Shinigami occupy this position as stated above. Shinigami can apparently see the lifespans of the living. This ability might not work on immortals since they don't have a lifespan. Komachi offers the eyes of the Shinigami in exchange for half their lifespan. This is likely a reference to another well-known series, and is this possibly a joke made by Komachi, the Trollish Reaper. According to Komachi, they are also capable of inflicting a powerful fear effect in normal humans by using a mental attack against an open crack in their hearts. That's new, never heard of that till now. Apparently this allows them to subdue most possible human opponents before the fight even starts, so simply being strong wouldn't be enough to delay one's inevitable demise. Hermits and Celestials seem to be immune to this effect, probably due to their altered state of mind, hence they stand a chance in a clash against a Reaper. They can be rather busted at times, Tenchi is a prime example of OP. However, as said before, Shinigamis aren't actually charged with the duty of ending the life of living beings, so this might as well be a lie. Titles. Let's review the titles Komachi has. We have characteristically Eidoko Shinigami, whatever the hell that means, Guide of the Riverside Mist, Dropped in Low Plateau Shinigami, and her most used of all, Guide of the Sanzu River, when she does her bloody job.
Possessions, if any.
Komachi has a few things on deck when it comes to possessions. The iconic symbol of the Grim Reaper would be her scythe. Aside from being a weapon, serves another, but more subtle purpose. When the spirit of a recently deceased person arrives on the shore of the Sanzu, one of the first sights they behold is a figure carrying a large scythe. The spirit realizes thanks to that tool that they are looking at a Shinigami. Somehow, realizing that Shinigamis really do match their traditional image seems to reassure them, put them at ease, and comes to terms with their fate more easily. That, I'm not gonna lie, is pretty smart. It makes the whole dead process much easier. Next would be her coins. A liberal use of coinage is the hallmark of Komachi's Damaku. This money comes from the spirit of the dead who paid the Shinigami a toll to ferry them across into Higan, something I mentioned earlier. The money for this toll comes from due to the connection they had with others while they were alive. More specifically, the toll is the total sum of the money used by others for one's sake during one's lifetime. Pretty much, if you're a good person, the toll should be easier to pay. We have to talk about the boat. Without that, she can't row the souls to Higan. That would make her job harder, if not impossible. The boat that Komachi uses, which she calls the Titanic, pretty epic I must say, to ferry souls is a special rowboat that can cross the Sanzu River and is provided to her by Hell in order to carry out her duties. It is old and worn, but she is perhaps unable to procure a new one due to Hell's current poor financial situation. Yet a few of her spell cards in Hisa Tensoko makes use of this boat on land. Hey, if it works, it works.
Ability/powers.
Good old Komachi has two abilities to talk about. The first would be manipulating distance, her most important one. It is literally the ability to manipulate the space between her present location and the destination she's heading. She uses this ability to carry out her duty of ferrying the spirits of the dead across the Sanzu River. Although it is unknown whether other Shinigami ferrymen also possess this ability or not. That would be good to know whether Komachi is unique or this ability is required to row the souls. This power may be used to affect both literal distance, for example changing the physical distance that exists between 2 points, and apparent distance, for example making it seem like you never get any closer to or further away from a location. The effects of this ability can be seen in Scarlet Weather, where Komachi uses it to restrict the enemy's movements. Make their life a living hell. No pun intended. Although Komachi's official profile in Phantasmagoria says that the width of the Sanzu River changes depending on her mood, which is presumably dictating how she uses her power, it is also mentioned in parts of the game's dialogue, especially between Eiki and Sakya, that the width of the river is at least partially dependent upon the actual ghost being ferried. That is some magic shit right there. Next one isn't as cool as the first one, but I would imagine it's required for her job. She has the ability to manipulate ghosts, probably because of her status as a Shinigami. Komachi is able to control departed spirits and even talk to them. Her job would be trickier if she couldn't do so.
Music.
When it comes to music, Komachi only has one theme, Higan Retour Riverside View. This is played in Phantasmagoria and Scarlet Weather. Here is the Phantasmagoria version. Next is the Scarlet Weather version.
Gameplay.
Let's review Komachi in Phantasmagoria. Her normal movement speed is only at 3 stars, so average. The same goes with her charge speed, with it belonging only at 3 stars. Her focus speed is 1.5, which is reasonable, as being too fast would defeat the purpose for that. When it comes to scope generation speed, however, she is the fastest, having 7 stars. The next closest would be her boss, Eiki. Her specialty is that she can instantly activate all spirits on the screen, which makes sense given she's a Shinigami. Dealing with spirits is kinda her thing. Her spell card charge is called Tip of the Reaper. She shoots a stream of coins, each coin having its own homing properties. Her spell card EX, which she tries to mess up her opponent, is called Ties with the Deceased. A huge swarm of coins will descend on them. They come in a pack arrangement near the top and unfolds outwards in a spiral pattern. Her spell card charge level 2 is called Thrown Coin, Yesterday's Money. 3 expanding rings of bullet and coin appear near the upper portion of the opponent's screen. The middle ring can be blasted by your shots. Her spell card charge level 3 is the same thing as level 2, just the bullets are now coins. Her spell charge level 4 is called Shinigami Shigen Retour. It's the boss summon and lots of bullets are heading your way. Be careful. Now let's look at Komachi when it comes to the fighting games. In the games, Komachi's melee attacks are rather slow but balanced by the fact that they are rather large and unable to be air blocked. Komachi is great at controlling space using her range and wisp and is at her best at roughly her max attack range, where she can force the enemy to make moves she can punish or beat. However, Komachi's projectiles are lacking in density and she will often have trouble approaching enemies. In order to utilize Komachi, it is ideal to have good center spacing as well as the ability to use cover fire and bullet walls. It almost sounds like she's the mark for the game, given the description, but I digress. So these are Komachi's pros: long-reaching normals, great anti-air options, good at controlling space, good staggers and block string resets, and good mobility for her size. These are her cons, however: large hurt box, average damage at best, long recovery and whiff, weak to rushdown, lack of dense bullets, limited ground and aerial pressure options. Something to note is Komachi's air dash and aerial BE causes her to lose altitude, aiding her in air combat.
Spell cards.
With gameplay finished, let's look at her spell cards. We covered Phantasmagoria, so let's look at the ones in the fighters. These spell cards will be when you face Komachi in the story mode. The first one is called Spirit Sign, Awakening of the Ancient Earthbound Spirits. The last specific story spell card is called Soul Sign, Game of the Soul. Let's review the spell cards you can manually activate. The first one is called Boat Sign, Flow of the River. The next one is called Poor Fate, Your Days Are Numbered. Next one is called Spirit Sign, Abundant Wandering Spirits. We then have Death Song, Fairy of the Deep Fog. Next one is called Exchange, Unvalued Life, Valued Life. Coming up is called the Malice Sign, Regretful Bound Spirits. This one is called Death Sign, Scythe of Final Judgment. The last spell card for Scarlet Weather is Hell, Narrow Confines of Avicii. With Scarlet down, let's look at Hisa Tensoku. There's only one new spell card for her in this game. The spell card is called Soul Sign, Scythe of Roaming Spirits. In Shoot the Bullet, there's 3 spell cards. One of them is Death Song, Fairy at the Deep Fog. We covered it, but that was the Scarlet version. Let's look at this version, as this was the first one given the release date of the games. We then have Old Rain in the liminal journey through Yomi. The last spell card is called Death Price, Price of Life.
Relationships.
Let's look at Komachi's relationship. The first notable one will be regarding her boss, Eiki. When a lot of souls were coming into Gensokyo, it was Komachi's job to handle it, but she's a slacker, so it didn't go as planned. In the game, Eiki was giving Komachi hell because she wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. From the dialogue, other Yamas were handling the souls, while Eiki had jacked because of Komachi's slack. The judge got real angry, giving her a lecture then going into a Damaku battle. The next person to look at is Tenchi, but not for good reasons, although the same could be said for Eiki, considering she caused the judge unnecessary stress. Anyway, Komachi may have had a grudge on Tenchi since she flexes hard with her celestial title, which the Shinigami feels she didn't deserve, though this supposed beef may not exist anymore in Wild. Near the end of the story, the two worked together in helping Reimu out of her predicament. Were it not for the duo, Reimu might have gotten a bad ending in all honesty. The last notable person would be Kazin. Throughout the entirety of Wild, they had an antagonistic approach to one another. Later on though, they were able to talk in a friendly manner, with Komachi laying down some threats here and there. In fact, Komachi at times would act as a cynical mentor to the hermit, giving her valuable information she wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Though this doesn't pertain to one person, Komachi is pretty friendly with the ghost sheep fairies. She's very polite and reassures them. She has shown calming down someone who had recently died, telling the soul they are a good person and that they're not going to hell. What a kind gal.
Fun/interesting facts.
Now some of the fun facts regarding Komachi all relates to her dialogues. In Scarlet Weather, when she defeats Patchley, she mentions the idea of having a notebook that brought death to anyone whose name was written on it. It's pretty damn obvious that it's a nod to Death Note. The next fact is also related to Death Note again. Clearly, Zuna and Twilight Frontier really dug the series. In Phantasmagoria, one of her win quotes has her saying that her eyes allows her to see how long someone will live. She goes on to offer to trade her eye for half of her opponent's remaining lifespan. Again, another reference to Death Note where Ryuk offered the Shinigami's eye to Light. Furthermore, it is directly contradicted in Perfect Memento, which states that there are Shinigami in the Ministry of Right and Wrong whose specific job is measuring and calculating lifespans. So it looks like the Shinigamis operated a little differently compared to the ones in Death Note. In alternative facts, Komachi gives us some tidbits about death. Even as Shinigamis, they don't know the exact date you will die. It's not precise, but people have a scent, or you may have a strange look to you. Regardless, they'll know. That feeling gets stronger and stronger, and when it gets real dark and muddy, that means it's time to come pick you up. The main reason she speaks about this is that she wants less folks to die. Let me put it out there that Komachi's not doing this for altruistic purposes. It's only because if less people die, that means less work for her, which in turn will be less lectures from Eiki. That's the Komachi I know.
Fanon stuff.
Now it's the Fanon part. Fun times. Komachi is a type of character who's associated to spirits and death. She is sometimes used in fan games to ferry the character over a river, mostly the river Sanzu. This was actually something I noticed during my Touhou playthrough, where she did exactly just that. Very fitting, I would say. Fan art tends to portray Komachi as being very large-chested, perhaps based off some remarks of her being tall and imposing in Perfect Memento. Her art depiction in Scarlet Weather is remarkable for being one of the few characters with a visible bust. She is also shown in Fanon to tease Eiki about the difference in bust size. As it's Fanon, Eiki in most of those cases will painfully poke Komachi's breast with her rod of remorse for pissing her off. A warning for those who want to flex their bodies off. In Fanon, Komachi's already considerable lazy/napping streak is exaggerated to often absurd levels, having her nap most of the days away and simply doing nothing at all, which again leads to Eiki lecturing her or even punishing her to different extents. That's why you don't go sleeping on the job. To a lesser extent, she appears as an older sister figure for characters such as Chiruno, likely based off of her victory quote against her. This is the win quote: "You look so bored. Alright then, I'll be your playmate from now on." At first, I want to say that she's being kind, but that could be an excuse to not do her job. Komachi is sometimes paired up with Yugi, who is a powerful, shapely woman, or Mei Ling, who is a strong, redhead, shapely, and lazy. Up to Hisa Tensoku's release, fans are looking forward to see how the two would interact. Sadly, all they got was some versus mode wind lines. Due to the use of Komachi's kanji in the last word theme in Imperishable Night, the use of this has been used in the titles of several Komachi doujins. Her ability to see people's lifespan is often joked. Clearly.
Pairings.
With that out of the way, let's look at the pairings. The first one will be Eiki and Komachi, Komazana or Koma Eiki. This is one of Komachi's main pairings given their professional relationship, Eiki being the boss and Komachi being the servant, with the things I mentioned previously in the fanon sections. Fans have been able to play the dynamics of their relationships to comedic or serious depending on the author. The last notable pairing would be Komachi and Kazan or Koma Kaze. This pairing is fueled by their relationship involved in the unofficial manga, The Shinigami's Rowing Her Boat as Usual, both by Aya Azuma. As a hermit, Kazin must periodically fight off a Shinigami like Komachi in order to extend her lifespan. As such, their interactions are mildly antagonistic, but Komachi treats the situation fairly casual, and even offers her advice and information. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Which facts about Komachi were your favorite? Were you not surprised at how much of a slacker she was? Would you hire her as an employee if given the chance? Or do you feel Aki is going to lecture her even further? Either way, this is Magi, and thanks again for watching.